Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Good morning, Bruchim Habaim, and you'll note that I'm still here. It's almost, somebody came up to the Bima this morning and said, I came because I wanted to hear what you would say about our world. And I said, would you please speak? What does one say? And what could possibly have prepared me or any rabbi to speak on a Shabbat such as this? Just when you think things are really challenging and bad, they seem to have the capacity to get worse, and there's a real sadness in that. There's also the realization that things have been very difficult in life for a very long time. Last night I mentioned in the Parsha this week, we read about the people complaining to Moshe once again, as you saw. And what they complain about is how bad it is in the wilderness and how good it was in Egypt. And they romanticize Egypt. They talk about the fish that they ate and the cucumbers, the onions, the garlic, and all these good things, which probably wasn't the case, but people do have the ability to think that there were good old days. What I said last night, and as of this morning, I'll still hold on to it, there really weren't good old days. Every time, every period of life has its particular challenges that contain both the good and the bad. So our challenge then is to live in that type of world, a world where there is good and there's bad. So be with me. I ask for your empathy. Imagine how difficult it is to come up with the proper words for this morning. We've been through so much as a people over the recent past, both as a Jewish people in relation to Israel, and certainly as Americans. I note that it's sunny outside. I've been praying for rain in Washington. We have faced many moments where we have felt threatened, and we've even felt that our very existence was in question, precarious. Maybe that's the type of moment we're living in. Since the early 90s, I recall conversations about the real danger facing Israel. I went to summer camp with the former ambassador to the United Nations and advisor to Bibi Netanyahu for many years, Dori Gold. And Dori and I were in touch with each other from the time we were in junior high school. Dori passed away this last year. And I remember when he was serving as an advisor to Netanyahu and when he was an ambassador visiting with him. And I visited with him just about every time I went to Israel until about a decade ago. And he would always remind me that the real danger was not on the West Bank. The real danger was a nuclear Iran. And that ultimately, eventually, it had to be dealt with. I'm wondering if any of you who are here traveled with me in a group from this congregation to protest the appearance of Ahmadinejad, then the president of Iran, when he appeared before the General Assembly at the United Nations. It was a pretty powerful moment. The airplane was filled with people from our synagogue and Boca Raton Synagogue. And in New York at Dag Hammarskjöld Plaza, we joined thousands of Jews from all over this country protesting Ahmadinejad. Why would the president of the state that was bent on and proudly stated their desire to be the destruction of the state of Israel and the destruction of the Jewish people, why would he be given such a platform? We wondered then. We wondered why the world was so tolerant with a nuclear Iran or an Iran that was attempting to become nuclear, when their stated goals were so very clear. We worked hard over the years for nuclear disarmament and for treaties, some of which we broke and perhaps should have stayed in. Negotiations failed as of late. We read that the latest negotiation between our administration and Iran were taking place. And during that time, Iran was creeping closer and closer to that place known as the nuclear threshold. And so the government of Israel took things into their own hands late Thursday night or perhaps early Friday morning. And the immediate results, the first things that we heard about were incredible, extraordinary successes. Israel was able to strike at military leadership and scientists who directed their nuclear program with an air defense system that had already been crippled by Israel months ago. They were able to do damage at that time, or the time when I wrote this, to at least one major nuclear facility, and now it appears a second nuclear facility. We recognize the incredible work of the Mossad, the Israeli spies that have been embedded in Iran. We recognize their brilliance and the technological achievements of the State of Israel. And for all of this, we have to be very grateful, and we have to be very proud. We also understand that there are many Iranians working with Israel and Israelis. In an older, more traditional religious context, perhaps we'd look at what happened as if it were a miracle from God. I'm not sure how well you remember the Six-Day War, but in many corners, that's how that victory was interpreted. But we knew and we know that those things don't happen from a place of a religious mythology. They take place, as Rabbi Applebaum referred to in his introduction to the Haftarah, because of extreme intelligence, advanced technology, and human courage to make things happen, to protect ourselves. That was true in 1967, and it's true today. I have no doubt, I stand here as a rabbi. I don't know much about strategic thinking, policy, military decisions, and I even know very little about politics. I have no doubt that faith plays a role. We have to believe. Belief gives us hope. We have to believe in ourselves and each other and believe that we will find the necessary protection, and how important that is on these days. I'll tell you that theologically, my great challenge always has been observed through the lens of this image that I have of ancestors who walked into gas chambers singing Ani Ma'amin. Perhaps it brought them comfort at those last moments, but it certainly did not bring salvation. As we hear and we say so often, it's all so complicated. In the Haftarah that was recited today, we found the words of the prophet Zechariah. Not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit. The words they should be quite familiar. And you know why? Because this Haftarah is the one that's read on the Shabbat of Hanukkah. The prophet speaking to the priests. And he indicates that there will be a day of peace. And the prophet says that the angel said to him, "What do you see?" And the prophet answered, "I see a lamp stand all of gold with a bowl above it." And he describes the vision of the menorah, just as the menorah is mentioned in the beginning of the Parsha. And the angel asks the prophet, "What do these things mean?" And the prophet doesn't know. And the angel says, "Not by might nor by power, but by my Spirit, said the Lord of hosts." I always thought it so very significant that this was the reading the rabbis chose for us to do on Hanukkah. On Hanukkah, when we celebrate the Maccabean military victory. And perhaps it's equally significant that this is the reading that we're doing on this particular Shabbat. Not sure if it's a coincidence, I'm not sure if we're to internalize this for some reason. But that's my job. My job is to bring text and commentary. This past week, I was reading Jonathan Sacks's essays on ethics. As I mentioned last week, you have to have a copy of a Jonathan Sacks book in your library. So I'd like to share a little bit about the ethics in this week's Parsha. He began by quoting David Brooks in Brooks's book, The Road to Character. David Brooks, in that book, as well as in a very well-known New York Times op-ed piece, spoke about two types of virtue. He says one category is what he called resume virtues, the resume. And that's to describe the achievements and the skills that we bring to work and to our success. What's the other category of virtue? He describes it as the eulogy virtue, that which we would want to be said at our funeral. These are the virtues that tell the kind of person you are, the kind of person you are when you're not playing a role. Who was the person that your friends and families recognized as being the real you? What is your essential core, your essential character made of? What's your value system about? In 1965, the great Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik, Zichrono Livracha, wrote a very famous essay entitled The Lonely Man of Faith. And in that essay, Soloveitchik spoke about two different Adams. Those of you who have studied in the Melton program know a lot about this because it plays an important role in the Breshit curriculum. He takes this notion of two different Adams from the first two chapters of Breshit. The first Adam, described in chapter 1, is the Adam who needs to control things, the Adam who needs power to subdue the earth. That Adam is dependent on all things material. That is Adam 1, Soloveitchik said. He seeks success. He's found in our world by his materialism and his desire for power. Adam 2 strives for charity and exhibits love and hopes for redemption. He looks for a different type of world. Adam 1 lives by economics, self-interest, and maximum utility. Adam 2 lives by his generosity, his capacity to give and to receive, and the centrality of morality. In this paradigm, success can lead to pride. And pride always leads to failure. But he says, and this is really important, failure can often lead to humility. And then, with humility, can come success. We live in this world where success seems to be everything, but success in our world is measured by the characteristics of Adam 1. By power and wealth. Jonathan Sacks said that in such a world, it is so important that each one of us cultivate an inner life, for that is where the Spirit can be found. And this may be the most important theme in Parshat Behalotecha. For up until this point, what we've seen is a Moses 1, a public Moshe. He is a man of incredible strength and power and shows great leadership. But this week, in the middle of this Parsha, we see Moshe break down. The complaints of the people are beginning to overwhelm him, and he begins to feel quite hopeless. And he comes to God with this sense of powerlessness and hopelessness, and even a desire to end his life. And God tells Moses, you need partners. And we find that there are then 70 elders who bear the burden of the people with Moshe. And 2 of them, Eldad and Medad, become prophets also. And Moses' whole mood begins to change because he has the support of others. He's existing in relationships that help him and them lead the people. 70 elders and 2 other prophets. When it's reported to him that Eldad and Medad are prophesying in the camp, as if Moses should be upset because they're taking away his job, Moses' response, was, would that all the people be prophets. We're all in this together. And what he learns is that his capacity to share power makes him more powerful. His ability to give up some power actually brings him more power. A bit later, Aaron and Miriam begin to disparage their brother Moses. They complain to him about everything, and mostly his relationship with an Ethiopian woman. It has all different types of interpretations, but it's clearly a low blow. Moses is unfazed. He's unfazed by it because he's reached a different place. It's a place of humility where he can hear the complaint, where he doesn't think everyone who's complaining is trying to destroy him, or every person who's complaining or different is going to destroy the people. He was betrayed by those closest to him, and he's unaffected. And the Torah makes this great statement now. Then the Torah says the following: now the man Moses was very humble, more than any other man on the face of the earth. Think about that. How incredible is that? Our greatest leader is known for his humility. Yismach Moshe b'matnat chelko ki eved ne'eman karata lo. Remember we read that this morning? Right after the Kedusha in Shachrit, we say that Moses rejoiced in the fact that God called him an eved ne'eman, a truthful, loyal servant. So whereas in other cultures, majesty, power, strength are the marks of importance and leadership, Moses was known as an eved ne'eman. And now he shares responsibility, and now he realizes that it's not just his action and the action of others, but there's also this other power. There's a power that's beyond any of us. And there's this other power that's within us that we have to reach to. But the power only works when the people can come together, work together, when the people will show the qualities of Moses and the Holy One. And it begins with a sense of humility, a sense that every person has dignity. The great C.S. Lewis put it best. He said the following, and I'm going to read this quote twice because it's great. He said, humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less. I'll read it again. Humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less. Israel and our people have experienced wondrous moments. We have seen the people's ingenuity and strength and their capacity to exhibit power when they work together and operate with the highest values. You remember, I'm sure many of you do, Saul Singer and Dan Sinor wrote this book perhaps 2 decades ago already, a best-selling book. It was entitled The Startup Nation. And every Jewish advocacy organization, every Jewish leader spoke about the startup nation because it made us all so proud. It was about the creativity and the innovation and the advancement in Israel's tech quarter, in business in Israel, and what Israel was able to achieve in the world of high tech and computers. And the preeminent place that Israel occupied in those areas all around the world, and how wealthy Israel was becoming. So they asked the following question, Singer and Sonora. They asked, how does such a small country create so much advancement, produce so much genius, and become so successful? And their most profound answer to this is in the following. He said it was in the ability of the people to work together, and they point out the following, because they say Israelis learn this through the culture of the IDF, the central institution of the people Israel, the most valued institution of the people Israel. Not everything goes from top down in the IDF with hierarchical structures. Decisions are often shared. Sometimes ideas and decisions go from the bottom up. Challenges are faced with small groups. Rarely did anyone make a decision by themselves. And when you take that culture and you impose it into the world of research and to whatever kind of work you're doing, be it business or be it in social services, you find that there's great potential for extraordinary results. When people cooperate and collaborate, people go very far. We need this. We need chevrusa. We don't learn alone. We learn with other people. And by being with other people, we strengthen each other. As your Rebbe said, to get it together, you've got to be together. And it makes all the difference in the world. It's so important we recognize this during difficult times. It's really important that each one of you is sitting here this morning. And in spite of what happened last night and the last 2 nights, the struggle is so far from over. We know that. And it's really important that we can both celebrate achievements and the change of position in the world, but not gloat and not think that our power is the be and end all of our existence. It's not. Over the last few years, we have suffered a great deal, and we have also caused incredible suffering. How important it is that we share in our pain and we share in the pain of others in this world, and that we take our responsibility in that. I can only hope and pray that the Prime Minister of Israel understands that Israel's success is a function of a nation of people who learned to work together, that needed to work together, that their technology was created through collaboration and cooperation and a determined effort to protect all of its citizens. It's not, nor has it ever been, about the power of one, the force of a specific leader, but rather it's through the Spirit that resides within the hearts of our people. You know, thinking back at our own lives, we know that there's something which resembled 67 in that incredible victory after the Six-Day War, and the elation we may have felt late on Thursday night or early Friday morning when we woke up. It seemed like a miraculous event. As great as the Six-Day War was, and as much security that it provided, those who know history also know that it created a certain danger for our people. And that danger came in the belief that it wasn't about the leadership and the people that worked together and the members of the IDF and the incredible Air Force. But there were extremists who believed that this was the hand of God and that this signified Reshit Smichat Geulatenu, the beginning of our redemption, the coming of the Messiah. And it was then that we lost sight of our own limitation. And it was then that we were blinded to the needs of those around us. And it was then that we lost some humility. Today we join the Jewish people feeling thankful for what has been good, but also we join the Jewish people with a sense of great insecurity and yes, some fear, but also hope. And we must join together expressing our needs for autonomy, that we need a Jewish homeland in this world, and that each one of us needs to be connected to it, and that it should never have to stand alone. And we stand with all people in this world, being our neighbors, like Palestinians, or people who are far away. The world is really hurt, and it needs to be healed. And we can be part of those who hurt more, or we can be those who wish to heal. As the menorah was lit, it cast light on the work of the priests. It gave light to all the people who saw it. And maybe most importantly, it let something that was inside of ourselves continue to grow in spirit, and the sense that holiness comes from proper humility. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.